My girlfriend and I were just hanging out, watching Netflix, and chilling. Then she asked me, "Do you want to see my sister's new hamster?" I quickly replied, "No, I'm good," before bowing my head. Out of nowhere, she tossed the popcorn at me. "I knew it," she snapped. "My family was right about you. You're disgusting." Before I could respond, she stormed out the door, slamming it behind her with such force that my dog jumped in fear. What just happened? I thought maybe she was just hungry or something. So, I decided to wait until she got home before I put in the order for her Wingstop. 30 minutes later, I found myself blocked on everything. A few hours passed, and it finally hit me, I'd been a terrible boyfriend. Sophia was obsessed with animals, and I refused to even meet her sister's new pet. The next morning, I decided to fix things. I went out and got myself a little brown hamster. I named him Brownie because, well, he was brown, and I'm not exactly a creative genius. But when I showed up at her apartment, I was greeted with complete coldness. There stood her ex, Liam, in basketball shorts, his wife lounging in a vest behind him. He looked me over, then at the hamster, and just said, "Sorry, bro," before slamming the door in my face. I stood there, completely dumbfounded, trying to make sense of what just happened. Brownie squeaked. The love of my life was slipping away, and all because of a rat. To make matters worse, I had just signed a lease for a place we were supposed to move into in 2 days, already having paid $30,000. I was about to be homeless in a week. I called my friend Isabella, knowing she'd always have the answers. But as soon as I explained what had happened, she went dead silent. The kind of silence where you can tell she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You did what?" she finally asked, her voice filled with disbelief. "What did you do?" I felt like the universe was playing some cruel joke on me. How quickly did I say no when she asked about the hamster? Instantly. "Well, okay," she responded, her voice dripping with disappointment. "Wow. You're different than I thought. All men are the same." That was the last thing she said before hanging up. I tried to text her again, but my messages were green instead of blue. Now, with only 48 hours left until I lost $30,000, I had to figure something out. But I still had one trick up my sleeve. I was still logged into Isabella's Instagram. So, I decided to use it to check Sophia's profile. In every story posted in the last 24 hours, there was Liam, showing up in her favorite cafe. He'd gone for walks with her dog, making that ridiculous pose he always did. But none of that made sense. Why would she mention the hamster when she was about to leave me? Then I saw it. Her Amazon wishlist still had Halloween costumes on it, bought 3 days ago. And her Pinterest board had been updated just yesterday with ideas for an autumn wedding with Jackson. It was clear now she wasn't preparing for our breakup. The hamster thing wasn't just an excuse. I was about to text Sophia when my phone rang. It was my mom. "I can't believe what you've done," she said, her voice thick with disappointment. "I'm so disappointed in you." "Mom, wait," I tried to say, but before I could finish, the line went dead. I was shaking, trying to make sense of it when another message from my little brother, Zane, popped up. "Dude, you've really messed up." "She's devastated," he wrote. But when I tried to ask him what the hell was going on, he ghosted me. With just 1 day left until I'd be homeless, I decided to write to Olivia, Sophia's cousin. She always thought I was funny. I cut to the chase. "Does your sister need help with her hamster?" The speech bubbles popped up and disappeared 5 times before she finally replied, "Jackson, are you okay? What the hell are you talking about?" It hit me like a ton of bricks. There was no hamster. And Brownie? He squeaked louder than ever. Less than a day to go before the lease was signed, I lost it when I drove around the city. I found her car at the Shell station, but she wasn't there. Liam was. He came over with a weird, sympathetic look on his face. "Hey, it's all good, Browski," he said. I stared at him. "What exactly are you apologizing for?" He laughed, but it wasn't mean. It was almost pitying. "Listen, man," he said, "it took me months to figure out her loyalty test system. There's this rule in her family where every member has to ask their partner for some strange favor. If you say no, you're out." I almost punched him. "What the hell? The hamster was your test?" He nodded, then added, 2 years ago, I passed. Learned, came back, said yes to everything. Now I'm back with Sophia." "You're done, man." Brownie stared at me through his cage, and it felt like he knew the cruel irony of it all. Liam tickled my shoulder. "Good luck, man. She has already chosen rings with me." I sat in the parking lot for an hour while Brownie condemned me. I realized something. Liam knew exactly how her system worked because he had studied it. But he had only given me the rules of the game. And if I can do something well, then it is to play games as soon as I know the rules. What I did next changed everything. I put my cell phone directly in the car and started Googling like crazy while Brownie watched me from his little transport cage on the passenger seat. My fingers trembled when I typed in things like family loyalty test, relationships, and strange friend tests that families do. And to be honest, I couldn't believe what I found there. There were whole Reddit threads about exactly this topic. Forums with thousands of posts by boys and girls that had similar situations with the families of their partners. In some families, you always had to accept likes. Others had tests about money or time or priorities. And the more I read, the more numb I became. I took screenshots of everything that seemed relevant, especially posts about how to pass these tests or get a second chance. Because maybe there was still hope when I looked through her special system. After 20 minutes of horror stories about broken relationships because of cat sitter refusal or missed birthdays of distant cousins, I needed insider knowledge. I texted Olivia because she was always cool to me and asked if we could go for a coffee to talk about something important that concerned her family. She replied quickly, but only had 15 minutes because of an appointment with her sister. That reminded me of the wrong hamster who had solved everything. I went straight to the cafe near the campus where we had an appointment. Olivia was already there when I entered. She was confused why I wanted to talk to her. I got us both drinks and sat across from her while I thought about how I should explain this without sounding completely crazy. I told her everything that Liam had said about the loyalty test and how every family member asks for a strange favor and who says no is out forever. Olivia's expression changed from confused to shock while she listened, and she shook her head again and again as if she couldn't believe what she heard. She said she heard her aunt say something about the loyalty test but always thought it was a joke to make sure that the boys meant it seriously. Then her expression changed as if she remembered something, and she told me how her mother had once asked her ex-boyfriend Ethan to help with the furniture in the morning at 3 a.m. Ethan complained about the unrealistic time and said he had to work the next day, which Olivia completely understood at the time. But Ethan's family ignored him within a week, didn't invite him anymore, and talked to Olivia all the time. She deserved better until they broke up. Olivia said she never understood why everyone became so weird so quickly, but now it made sense when he failed at some test. I asked her if she knew about further tests or rules, but she really didn't seem to understand how the whole system worked. After Olivia went to her sister, I sat in my car for a minute and processed everything before I went to Isabella's apartment because I needed answers from someone who clearly knew about this whole situation. I knocked on her door for about 5 minutes before she finally opened it. She looked super annoyed, probably because she had blocked me and I had still appeared. I explained everything to her about the loyalty test system and that I didn't know that I was tested when Sophia asked about the hamster, but Isabella just stood there and shook her head. She said, "I know that now, it doesn't change the fact that I failed. A good friend would have said yes without test knowledge." Then she let the next bomb explode when she admitted that she should have tested me too, but hadn't gotten to it yet. At her test I was supposed to be asked to cancel the playoff game next week to help her move a sofa or something similar stupid and trivial. She said the family had a group chat in which they coordinated everything and exchanged results on how friends reacted to their tests. I literally begged her to show me the group chat on her cell phone. And after a long back and forth she finally gave in and showed me the news from 2 days ago. It was black on white. Sophia's mother had written that I had messed up the hamster test and didn't even hesitate to say no. Everyone in the chat started expressing their disappointment, saying they knew something was off with me and that Sophia deserved someone who would put her family first. The worst part was seeing a message from Aunt Clara suggesting I get another chance, since I didn't know the rules of the family's system. But Sophia's mom shut that down instantly. "A good friend would have wanted to meet the pets, of course, without needing a test," she wrote. I scrolled through the messages, feeling more and more confused. I couldn't find anything about me in the context of Sophia's response. But she never wrote back. Just silence. She didn't defend me or agree with anything. While her family was planning the end of our relationship, I asked Isabella if there was any way I could take another test or prove that I understood the system now and would follow it. She told me I was done, that I had failed and there was no coming back unless I acted like Liam. Disappear, study the family, come back a changed man. But Liam took 2 whole years to earn Sophia's favor back. And I had less than 12 hours before I lost $30,000 on this apartment. But Isabella did mention there might be a loophole. Aunt Clara, who was essentially the family matriarch, could help. Clara had veto power over the test results and could override the others if she decided to give someone a second chance. But Isabella warned me Clara was tough, and she didn't tolerate outsiders trying to manipulate the system or sneak their way back in. I jumped into my car and pulled up Clara's contact info from my phone. I still had her number from when I planned Sophia's surprise birthday party last year. My hand shook a little as I hit dial, and after just one ring, she picked up as if she'd been waiting for my call. "Tyron," she said in a neutral tone, neither mean nor friendly. I explained that I needed to speak with Sophia and needed to talk about the tests. There was a moment of silence, and then she said, "Meet me in an hour at the diner on Maple Street." "I don't care about your sob stories or manipulations," she warned. "I'll know if you're serious. Otherwise, it's a waste of time." I got there 20 minutes early and sat in the parking lot, planning out what I was going to say. Clara pulled up and drove past the diner. I followed her to a reserved table. Without glancing at the menu, she ordered coffee and looked at me, her eyes sharp, like a teacher waiting for an explanation of missed homework. "So, why did you fail the hamster test?" she asked, cutting straight to the point without any small talk or niceties. I took a deep breath and gave her the honest truth. I didn't think it was a big deal. I felt comfortable in the relationship and didn't feel the need to prove anything by meeting a pet. To my surprise, she actually laughed. "That's the most honest answer I've ever heard from someone who failed a test," she said. Then, she started explaining. She told me the whole system started after her sister's husband left her for his secretary after 15 years of marriage. No one saw it coming because he always appeared perfect, doing everything right in public. The tests, she explained, were developed to spot early warning signs. If someone in the family refuses to do a small favor, then they won't be there for the bigger things when it matters most. She told me that 2 years ago, Liam had failed his test because he didn't want to go to bingo with Sophia's grandmother. He claimed he was busy, but really, he was just at home playing video games. I asked her how Liam earned back her favor, and she told me he studied each family member carefully, learning their values and what mattered most to them. Then he came back and showed real change. Now, he goes to bingo every week with grandma, remembers everyone's birthdays, brings thoughtful gifts. He'd essentially transformed into the perfect family-oriented guy. She looked at me seriously and said she could see I was desperate about the apartment situation, but desperation wasn't enough to prove anything. "I need to see real change," she told me. "Not someone who's just trying to save money." She said she'd be watching what I did next with the information she gave me. I thanked her for meeting with me, and she nodded, wishing me luck, though it was clear she didn't believe I'd succeed. As I walked back to my car, I saw 3 missed calls from Emma at the rental office and a voicemail telling me I'd lose the deposit if I didn't confirm the lease by 5 p.m. It was already 2 p.m., and there was no way Sophia would sign anything with me at this point. I sat in my car for a moment, trying to think through my next steps. Then I remembered Clara's words, show real change and focus on what's truly important in the family. Sophia loved animals. If I showed her this meant something to me now, even if it was too late for the rental contract, it might count for something. I drove straight to the zoo on the south side of the city. I went inside and asked if I could help out as a volunteer right away. The coordinator seemed confused by my urgency but told me they always needed help. She quickly set me up to clean without any training or instructions. The smell hit me immediately as I started cleaning, shoveling, and spraying down the concrete floor while dogs barked and jumped against their cage doors. After about 30 minutes of scrubbing, I pulled out my phone and snapped a selfie with some of the zoo dogs in the background. I posted it on Instagram with a caption about giving back. Within literally 2 minutes, Isabella replied with only 3 words that made my stomach drop even further. "That's disgusting," she wrote. Then, she followed up with another message, "Stop trying so hard." That was when I realized how desperately I had been acting, trying so blatantly to get approval from everyone who knew about the situation. Just as I was processing it, my phone buzzed with a text from Liam. I almost dropped it when I read that he had seen my zoo post and knew it wasn't real. He also said that Sophia knew I had been using Isabella's account to spy on her stories. For a moment, I stared at the message, then I looked at all the dogs that really needed help. It became crystal clear I had tried to manipulate a system that was built to catch people like me. I deleted the Instagram post right away and went back to scrubbing the floors, realizing that these dogs needed real help, regardless of whether anyone was watching or not. The smell of bleach stung my eyes, and my back ached from bending over, but I kept moving from cage to cage. Then I reached a pit bull in the far corner, who wouldn't stop shaking. This poor dog was pressing himself against the wall, tail tucked, eyes wide with fear. It hurt to look at him. I sat down on the concrete floor in front of his cage, not touching him, just sitting there. I wanted him to know I wasn't going to leave. After maybe 10 minutes, he moved a little closer to the front of the cage. I stayed perfectly still, and after another 10 minutes, he was close enough that I could slowly reach my fingers through the bars. He sniffed them carefully before pulling back again. The coordinator came by and told me they needed someone who could foster him for a few weeks while he built up his confidence. She said the shelter was too loud and overwhelming for him. I wasn't thinking clearly when she mentioned it, but I told her I'd do it, even though I would be crashing on Jose's couch, which wasn't ideal for a scared dog. She seemed surprised but started preparing the paperwork while I grabbed my phone to call Jose. He answered quickly after 3 knocks. When I asked if I could bring a dog to stay with him, he hesitated for a moment before saying that his landlord didn't allow pets. My stomach dropped. Not only was I about to lose the apartment, but I couldn't even help a needy dog. Then I saw a message from Emma at the leasing office. I had 2 hours left to confirm, or I'd lose the deposit and the apartment would be back on the market. My hands were shaking as I read it. $30,000 gone, all because I refused to meet a hamster that didn't even exist. I knew I had to do something. I wrote to Sophia, telling her I knew about the tests and that I understood I had failed. I just asked for her to sign the lease announcement so I could get back a part of the deposit from the early cancellation. Her reply came almost instantly, and my heart sank. "There's no cancellation clause because I saved $50 a month on rent," she wrote. I still remember how confident I was when we first discussed the lease, thinking we would never need the deposit because we were so solid. The pit bull was watching me through his cage, and I felt like the biggest idiot in the world. I called my mom, hoping she could help. Maybe she could take over the lease or find someone else, but she said she couldn't afford it and reminded me that she had warned me about going with Sophia. She spent the whole conversation telling me how I never listen and always overstep. I sat on the floor of the shelter, feeling everything crumble. With 90 minutes left before I'd lose everything, I drove to Sophia's apartment, not knowing what else to do. Her car was in the parking lot, and Liam's truck was there too. They were unloading boxes from the trunk. She was wearing the old college sweatshirt I bought her last Christmas, and Liam was holding the lamp we picked out together at Target. They were laughing and talking like everything was fine, and Sophia looked happier than she had in weeks. She was unloading her stuff from my car, and I realized she'd probably be with him soon. Liam grabbed another box, and Sophia picked up her trunk. They moved like they had always done it together. Brownie, in his transport cage on my passenger seat, made little squeaking noises, and I wondered what I was supposed to do with a hamster and maybe a dog if I didn't even have a leash. The clock on my dashboard showed 87 minutes until the deadline, and I knew I had to do something. But as I watched them together, it was clear to me the train had already left. Liam closed the trunk, put his arm around Sophia's shoulders, and they headed back inside to grab more boxes. I thought about stepping out and talking to them, but what was the point? They had already moved on, and I was about to lose everything. Emma's text asking for the final confirmation buzzed in my hand. I froze. I was completely screwed. My fingers trembled as I reached over and grabbed Brownie's cage, asking him, "Do you want to go with her?" After everything, the hamster chaos, trying to fix things, I just wanted to make it right. She looked at Brownie running in his wheel, and her face changed for a split second. It softened, then hardened again. She told me she couldn't take Brownie with her because Liam was allergic to him. He offered me €5,000 for the apartment, but his eyes darted around as if he didn't really want to. I looked at him with his stupid basketball shorts and asked, was it worth it? 2 years of studying your family's tests just to end up here? His expression grew weary, and he sighed, telling me that, some days, he could manage, but he loved her enough to follow her rules. It was the most heartbreaking thing I had ever heard. I walked back to my car, Brownie still in his cage, and checked my phone. Only 71 minutes were left until the deadline, and it made my stomach twist. I sat there, knowing time was running out. I sat in the car, counting down the minutes to the deadline. The pressure was unbearable. I had no idea what to do next. I looked around at the pile of paperwork in front of me. Sophia stopped dead in her tracks when she saw me, her gaze quickly shifting to Marina, who was still at the counter, filling out her moving checklist. Liam flicked his eyes between all of us, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, while Sophia's face cycled through 5 different expressions in the blink of an eye. Marina waved at them, not recognizing them, and turned back to her work as Emma called her over to another counter. Sophia's eyes kept returning to me as she sat down. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to figure out how I had managed not to lose everything without her help. I didn't say anything. I turned and walked out, heading straight for Jose's apartment, where he was already clearing out the guest room for me and Brownie. We spent the next 3 hours moving my things into his truck, driving it over to his place. By midnight, I was lying on an air mattress in his guest room, watching Brownie race around on his ball, exploring the new apartment. Jose brought me a beer and mentioned his lease would be up in 2 months. If my finances work out, we can find a place together, he said. My living situation isn't great. The next morning, I went back to the animal shelter. I spent 4 hours in the kennel with the nervous pit bull, reading a book and waiting for him to get used to my presence. Every day that week, I showed up, doing the same thing, no photos, no posts. On Friday, he finally let me pet him. The shelter coordinator asked if I'd like to keep coming in to help. I said yes. Watching that dog go from shaking in the corner to wagging his tail felt better than any Instagram likes. Saturday morning, a family came in looking for a dog and fell in love with him. I helped them with the adoption papers, and later, they sent me a video of him playing in their backyard. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Aunt Clara. She said she had heard that I handled the rental situation well and hadn't accepted Liam's money, which she saw as a sign of good character. I read the message twice, then deleted it without replying. I wasn't looking for her approval anymore, she could think whatever she wanted. 2 weeks later, Isabella texted me, apologizing for her harsh behavior. I had been busy working and volunteering at the shelter. She called me to explain that the family's testing system had gotten out of control. Apparently, Lucy's boyfriend had just learned about the tests and immediately left her, not wanting to be part of that manipulation. Isabella said more and more people were starting to question whether these tests were worth the damage they caused to good relationships. Sophia's mom. The tests were working as intended, she said, weeding out the weak partners. I told Isabella it was fine, that I understood her reaction, but I was moving forward with my life. A few days later, Zane texted me. His daughter wanted a cat for her birthday, and he'd heard I worked at the shelter. I met them that weekend and helped them find an orange tabby. It immediately climbed onto his daughter's lap and began to purr. After the adoption, Zane and I went to the sports bar down the street for a beer. He admitted that the whole hamster situation had been weird, and he didn't really know how to respond when Sophia called him, crying about it. He felt guilty for ghosting her. The family chat had been so intense, and he didn't want to get dragged into the drama. About a month after the breakup, I was at the cafe near the women's shelter, getting my usual coffee, when I turned around and saw Sophia sitting alone at a corner table. Her laptop and schoolbooks were spread out in front of her. She looked up, and we locked eyes. For a moment, I could have just walked away, but instead, I walked over and asked if I could sit down. She nodded, closed her laptop, and we talked for maybe 5 minutes about normal things, how her classes were going and what life at the shelter was like. Then, she said the test system might have been toxic, but her family meant everything to her, so she'd gone along with it even though it didn't feel right. I told her I hoped she was happy with Liam, and I meant it. It wasn't worth holding on to anger anymore. She looked down at her coffee and said Liam had passed every test without fail, but sometimes she wondered if he was being true to himself or just doing what her family expected of him. She told me he kept a notebook of everyone's preferences and studied it before family gatherings, something that sounded exhausting. I didn't know what to say, so I just wished her well and left. A week later, Carlos and I were browsing apartments online and found a 3-bedroom place that allowed pets and was actually within our budget. We toured it the next day and signed the lease right away. I officially adopted Brownie and got permission to start fostering dogs from the shelter. The moving day was a mess, Carlos, my stuff, and Brownie all adjusting to the new place, but by the end of the weekend, everything was set up, and it felt like home. 3 months after the breakup, my phone rang. It was Aunt Clara calling to let me know the family was reconsidering their testing system. Several relationships, including Olivia's and 2 of Sophia's cousins, had fallen apart because of it. She said they were planning a family meeting to discuss it and asked if I would be willing to share my perspective, having gone through it myself. I thought about it for a second before politely declining. It wasn't my problem anymore, and they could sort out their mess without me. 2 weeks later, Liam's message popped up on my phone while I was cleaning the kennels at the animal shelter. He sent a long text explaining that he and Sophia had gotten engaged last week, but he was already getting tired of it. He mentioned that he kept a notebook with everyone's likes and dislikes and studied it before every family dinner. He thanked me for not warning him, saying that if I had, he would have run away before he got too deep. I deleted the message without replying and went back to hosing down the concrete floors of the kennel. The next morning, while walking my nervous foster dog at the park, I ran into an acquaintance. Sophia's mother was there with her white poodle, walking around the fence. She came straight up to me and, to my surprise, apologized for the whole test situation. After Olivia's boyfriend broke up with her and her 2 nieces left, she realized the tests had driven away decent people. She said they would keep people like Liam, who were willing to fake everything just to stay in the relationship. As Beagle started barking at her poodle, I had to cut the conversation short and move to the other side of the park. 3 more months passed, and life settled into a nice routine: work, volunteering, and hanging out with Carlos. Then, one Saturday at the shelter, a new volunteer named Chloe started in the cat department. We got talking while cleaning the litter boxes. She asked about the hamster, and I told her all about the scam with the hamster test and how I lost $30,000 in the process. She laughed so hard that she had to sit down on the floor next to the cat cages. After our volunteer shifts, we hung out, and she told me that her family was incredibly normal. Her parents just asked her to do regular things, help with groceries or fix the computer. No hidden tests, no rating friendships, no power struggles. 6 months after the whole Sophia situation, Chloe and I were officially together, and it felt so much easier than anything I'd experienced before. Looking back, I realized I had learned something valuable from losing $30,000. Some games aren't worth playing if you end up losing yourself in the process. Brownie is still in his cage by my bed, chirping away at night. Carlos has turned out to be a great roommate who actually does his dishes. Working at the animal shelter on the weekends gives me something meaningful to focus on. Chloe thinks the hamster story gets funnier every time I tell it to someone new. Honestly, you win when you stop playing the game and start living your life. Thanks for letting me share all these strange twists and turns with you. It's been interesting to reflect on it all. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up.